Yo, there's been a lot of talk about a strategic Bitcoin reserve in the United States, and more recently, Bitcoin potentially being added to the recently announced U.S. Sovereign Wealth Fund. A Bernstein report dropped yesterday emphasizing the U.S. Crypto Task Force is focused on rolling out a national Bitcoin reserve, not a digital asset reserve, and how that could be used to potentially pay off the US's $36 trillion debt. I know it all sounds very complicated, but it's much simpler. The solution is much simpler than it sounds. Here is Preston Pish explaining just that.
Hey guys, so I'm going to be talking about bit bonds and why I think that this is a really important topic and very few are covering it or even mentioning this idea. So when we look at what the country, the US, has due in the coming 12 months, it's maybe as high as $9 trillion that they've got to finance in the coming 12 months. This is nuts. Okay, this amount of debt that they're going to have to issue is totally crazy. And when we look at what happened over the past 12 months, so much of this issuance that came from Janet Yellen and the past administration was just kicked 1 year into the future. And I would argue most of the reason that they were doing that is because they didn't really have an appetite to buy on the long end, like long duration bonds, call it 10, 20, 30 years in duration. And so that's why they had to move to this 12-month or less issuance. So the amount here, $7 trillion of this is just because of all the issuance that they did over the past year that's coming due. And then if you account for the potential of a $2 trillion deficit happening this coming year, which there's, whether Doge and Elon are able to get that number down, I don't know, but I think we just kind of plan for that getting realized. That's what brings it to about $9 trillion. So regardless, this number is huge. And how can you start issuing bonds that are longer duration with there being actual free and open market demand for buying it is the real question. And so enter the bit bond. And so I would highly encourage people. I'm going to share underneath of this video the tweet from Brian Estes. This is a page and a half. It's super easy to read. It's super straight to the point, really well written. And I would highly encourage people to read this because it's really thoughtfully constructed the way that they laid this out. And it's simple. If you issue, let's say, $100 billion worth of bonds, you take 1% of what's raised in that issuance and you buy Bitcoin with it, you hold it, let's say it's a 10-year bond, you hold that Bitcoin for 10 years, and at the time of the maturity and you have to pay back the 100 billion, the 1% of that's going to be paid in Bitcoin. So, and the other 99% would be in fiat cash. So what I think this does is that 1%, let's say Bitcoin goes to 1 million over that 10-year period of time or more, and you bought it at this 100,000 price today, that's a 10x growth rate in that 1%, which would then make up 10% of the overall issuance of that $100 billion, which is really exciting for the person who would have been sitting on that bond or purchased that bond. So this just creates, in my opinion, a new interest. It reinvigorates the idea for anybody that has a mandate to own sovereign debt. I think that this would create a lot of interest that's not there right now. In fact, I think most people are doing the numbers and doing the math and saying, I need to stay as far away from this stuff as possible. But something like this is a very creative solution. It's a really simple solution that I think.
Absolutely. And let's take a look at what Preston was referring to. Here is the post itself from Brian Estes. U.S. Treasury bit bonds could drive interest rates to near 0%. Read the page 2 of the white paper here. In summary, the BIT bonds will generate substantial cash flow into the U.S. Treasury while simultaneously driving interest rates to zero, which will fuel the Trump economic recovery plan and help Americans by lowering the risk-free interest rate in the bond market. This new class of Treasury debt instrument comes with the minimus risk to the government and market participants. BIT bonds are the bridge to transition to the new era of American exceptionalism led by President Trump and the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. So it goes on to say it shows it shows a chart of what's going on here. And two things are happening simultaneously, which is what I was saying in the very beginning. I actually been listening to a lot of podcasts and I've been doing a lot of research on the strategic Bitcoin reserve. I actually heard Pompliano talk about this. I think it was a video that he dropped yesterday where he said he is extremely confident that the strategic Bitcoin reserve is going to happen and that it's going to be Bitcoin only. And I would agree. And here is a YahooFinance article that says U.S. crypto task force to focus on delivering national Bitcoin reserve. Here's Saylor, of course, tweeting, every state should have a strategic Bitcoin reserve. It goes on to say the U.S. crypto task force will focus on starting a national Bitcoin reserve, a move that is likely to spur similar efforts worldwide. Broker Bernstein said in a research report Monday, quote, a creation of a U.S. Bitcoin reserve could lead to a global race among sovereigns to buy Bitcoin as one of the reserve assets. Analysts led by Guan Chung, I can't pronounce that, I apologize. The formation of a strategic Bitcoin reserve poses a number of structural questions, the report said. Will the U.S. Federal Reserve or the Treasury buy Bitcoin? If the Fed, that would require legislative approval, the report noted. How would the Fed fund cryptocurrency purchases? Bernstein said it could issue debt or sell some of its gold reserves. The U.S. government could add the $20 billion in Bitcoin it has seized from criminal enterprises to any national reserve, the report said. The broker noted that the Trump administration also announced the creation of a sovereign wealth fund. Such a fund would consider key U.S. crypto companies / market leaders as strategic assets to own. Investors should position themselves for the next leg of the bull market across Bitcoin and Bitcoin-linked equities. So extremely bullish overall, right? Talk about the sovereign wealth fund. Of course, Bitcoin is going to be included in that. Part of the organizers of the sovereign wealth fund is Howard Lupnick. Howard Lupnick is the chairman of Counter Fitzgerald. Counter Fitzgerald manages the money for Tether in the United States. And he's also been seen in a video on Anthony Pompliano's podcast where he says, I own tens of millions of dollars of Bitcoin, and I plan to buy hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. And of course, the man behind the strategic Bitcoin reserve is David Sachs, the so-called AI and crypto czar at the White House. So I think that even with the executive order that I think a lot of people were let down with, I still think that it's definitely happening. And I see it happening in 2025. I think we're going to have a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve. And I think all other countries around the world that are watching what the United States is doing are not going to have a choice but to follow in the footsteps or, potentially getting left behind. And you definitely don't want to do that from a strategic level. Now, this is extremely interesting because this is actually the case that Senator Cynthia Lummis made when I recorded a podcast with her, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago in DC, around the days around the inauguration. She was basically making the same case that, look, you can use Bitcoin to pay off some of the debt that the United States has. And this is essentially what these BIT bonds are, advocating to do as well. It seems like Bitcoin, wherever you implement it, if you add it, if you're a small business and you add Bitcoin to your treasury strategy, if you're a large business, if you're a MicroStrategy, if you're a MetaPlanet, if you're a country, it seems like Bitcoin fixes things the way that I see it, right? So today we have a very special guest on the show. We have Sidra. Sidra is the CEO and founder of Adam's shoes. They're super comfortable. If you guys remember this, they released a special edition Bitcoin pair, and it had a Bitcoin logo. I definitely got a couple pairs myself, and they're incredibly comfortable. So huge fan of their products and the stuff that they make. And they potentially might be releasing some more Bitcoin merchandise in the future. So Sidra, you were talking about before we went on air about how you've implemented Bitcoin into your startup, into your company, and how it's actually helped you guys tremendously.
Yeah, first of all, guys, thank you so much for inviting me. And just by listening to, the kind of news and things you guys shared, it's really exciting. First of all, thank you so much for doing that. Um, so for Atoms, actually, we are a shoe company who is focused on making innovative shoes for every day. And we launched our Bitcoin shoes in 2020. And interestingly, we actually did collaboration with Bomb. Bomb, he has been very, very generous since the beginning for us. And I mean, even when we were just launching. So I know him since last 6 years. So for Atoms, actually, the reason we did launch Bitcoin shoes was because when people were talking about Bitcoin, the idea of financial freedom, that actually resonated with me a lot personally, because I'm an immigrant founder from Pakistan, women founder, and for me, the first concept was, of course, like you were hearing Bitcoin news here and there. Like I was part of Y Combinator and from tech community, so I knew about this, but I never had the money to buy Bitcoin for myself until I started receiving my salary in 2020, actually 2019, end of 2019. And then the first investment that I had was actually buying some Bitcoin that I could afford at the time. And I have a team member who is really bullish about Bitcoin. So I was telling you guys, like every time someone joins Atoms, he always say like, hey, best of the best investment you can do is in Bitcoin. So building from that, actually, he have been pushing us to invest some reserve cash into Bitcoin. And earlier, we in startup world, the usual thing is you give your reserve cash to bank or someone who manage finance, and then you get some money month over month. And then one day he sat down and he said, like, look, like if we could have invested this much money in Bitcoin, by this time we could have got like 10x better return on our cash. So since then we started investing whatever little bit money we save or we get profit from our business in Bitcoin. And the fortunately now we are holding as a company some Bitcoins. And the whole idea that we are doing is like we should keep investing more as much as we have reserve cash. And I think as I'm also like following the news, I think that it's going to be much much bigger in next 5 to 10 years. And we also want to invest on this, not from business perspective, but also we want to be part of this community, because I think Bitcoin community, they are not just working on thinking about creating a wealth for themselves, but I think this is something they are creating such a revolutionary thing for the entire society. And now we are talking about American government is involving. I think they are quite late, but I think still it's so much better to be involved in something that can be really big as an asset in future.
Absolutely. And I love how you are implementing this into your small business, your startup. You mentioned you're taking your salary in Bitcoin, which is absolutely badass. You released a special edition Adam's shoe, which it's so popular. It's so much of the Bitcoin community. So I just want you guys to get like a bird's eye view of what's happening. You're seeing Bitcoin being potentially adopted on a nation state level, on a state level, on a small business level. Of course, we're a small Bitcoin media company, so of course we have a Bitcoin treasury strategy, right? And of course, a lot of our employees get paid in Bitcoin directly as well. So yeah, Bitcoin helps you if you're a small business, if you're just getting started. runway is very important, and it just makes your runway bigger. Like, it's a cheat code. It really, really is. So really happy to have Sidra on today's show. We're going to be talking about atoms later on during the culture segment. You guys have to get these pairs of shoes. They're incredibly comfy. If you see me around Bitcoin conferences, there's an 80% chance that I'm wearing them. Specifically the model 0000, which is super, super comfy. I don't really wear the Bitcoin ones these days because they're special edition and I want to keep them mint or like close to not so worn out. But anyways, Opti, what's your take on this, man? It's pretty crazy. Bitcoin bonds. I mean, we were hearing about this in El Salvador, how the volcano bonds, how Nayib Bukele was going to use some type of volcano, some type of Bitcoin bond to pay off the debt. Now you're hearing something very similar happening in the United States. Preston had such a great breakdown of what was happening. So I want to get your thoughts on this, Opti. And also, additional news, it looks like the sovereign wealth fund is happening. I mean, I heard this video from Pomp yesterday, and he sounded extremely confident. Bernstein sounds extremely confident about it happening as well. And again, no one's better than their incentives. And if you see, look, we got someone in the chat as well. Kira says, I've bought some atoms in the past. They're so comfy. Absolutely agree. So Opti, I want to get your thoughts on this. It looks like the sovereign wealth fund is happening, and it looks like it's going to be Bitcoin only.
Yeah, well, first off, I do want to comment on Sidra's, whoever the person at Adams that is a Bitcoiner, you love to have just a Bitcoiner at the company, and he's obviously making the company that much more profitable. So you love it. It just goes to show like Bitcoiners are everywhere. That was the first thing I want to say. The second thing is, Nico, can you pull up that white paper from the Brian Estes tweet? And I want to see the chart, the second page. So, recently, I think personally, I did kind of get, and zoom in a little bit. I do want to comment on this. On a personal level, I think I did kind of get caught up on a strategic Bitcoin reserve. The narrative around a strategic Bitcoin reserve, I think, would be huge for like international interest, global interest coming into Bitcoin. It would be a very legitimizing moment if the U.S. government does add a strategic Bitcoin reserve, or when they do a sovereign wealth fund and they add Bitcoin to it. We know that sovereign wealth funds around the world now are actually adding Bitcoin to their sovereign wealth funds with Bitcoin. And, all of this, I think, is and I hate using the term, but it is legitimizing the Bitcoin movement. We all know now that institutions are here. They want Bitcoin. So if you're selling your Bitcoin, you're most likely selling it to institutions. But with all that being said, in the past couple of weeks, I think I've gotten a little more bearish on a strategic Bitcoin reserve. I don't think it's necessarily as big as we think it would in terms of price movement, but it is very much a very strong narrative around Bitcoin. And if the US does legitimize Bitcoin, they start to save in Bitcoin, a strategic Bitcoin reserve, then that would be huge for the world, or rather huge for our world in Bitcoin. But I think this Bitcoin bond thing might even be a extraordinarily bigger idea than a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And I'm saying that because if you look at this chart, kind of breaking this down a little bit, if you guys watch the whole Preston Pish video, he breaks this down better than I could. But essentially the TLDR here, the short summary of this is, if you see this, I think it's blue. I'm colorblind, maybe it's purple. I don't know. I don't know what color it is. It's purple or blue. You can see the U.S. federal debt has been on an 8% CAGR, or compounding annual growth, post 2008. And as you can see, it's damn near going parabolic. Now, if you look at this red line here, is the price insensitive buying of U.S. treasuries is flat to down since 2014. Essentially, just to very simply break this down, is as the U.S. issues more debt, the red line shows that interest in buying these treasury assets, these sovereign debt assets, are going absolutely sideways, which means basically no one is interested in treasury. As we've been covering for a long time, the interest around buying U.S. debt has, it's not there anymore. And even though they issue more debt, it doesn't seem like there's new buyers in the market. So again, interest rates, you can just kind of break it down to interest in buying these debts. And I'm not the most, technical person here. I usually kind of reserve this to someone more like CJ Constantinos. He's been killing it on this idea of Bitcoin bonds and the People's Reserve Bank. And of course, my boy Nolan. And they've been kind of talking about that. I think this Bitcoin bond idea is the more interesting idea of how, the dirty word of financializing Bitcoin will play out. As we heard from Preston Pish, if these new treasury Bitcoin bond assets do get issued, they will buy a certain portion of it in Bitcoin. And of course, as we all know, the number will go up, and that small 1 to 5% of Bitcoin bought in these treasuries are obviously going to go up. Who knows what in the next decade or two, 10, 20x, etc. And this seems like a more viable route of how they can actually use Bitcoin to pay off their national debt or to acquire more Bitcoin. So this Bitcoin bond idea, to me personally, I think it's way more bullish than a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Obviously, sovereign wealth funds buying Bitcoin, the U.S. adding Bitcoin to their national strategic reserve, all that would be a very strong narrative around Bitcoin. But this idea of a Bitcoin bond, to me, seems like a more legit and simple way for Bitcoin to be financialized. And so this is something I think we should keep an eye on. Obviously, we don't know what's going to play out, but I do love that Preston Pish is out here and talking about this. And so hopefully more people take this seriously. Hopefully the politicians, the treasury, etc., they don't just kind of get glossy-eyed here and be like, look, that sounds too complicated. To me, I think Bitcoin bonds is a better route to financialize Bitcoin. And we'll see how this plays out. But I really like this idea of Bitcoin bonds much more than a strategic Bitcoin reserve or even just adding Bitcoin to a sovereign wealth fund. This sounds like a more interesting product. This is a good way to get interest into the system, obviously, and Bitcoin basically injecting and I hate to say it, but saving the dollar. And I know I'm the anti-dollar guy here. I'm the one that's like, Bitcoin's going to replace the dollar. But I think we all knew that this moment was going to come where people are going to try to find and use Bitcoin in a way to help themselves. Like we heard here from Sidra and us here, we're small businesses and we know what Bitcoin's done for our company. And to me, this sounds like a more viable route for nation states and other, huge institutional capital to use Bitcoin in a way that doesn't necessarily hurt or hamper the adoption of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin bonds is very interesting to me.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, and it's extremely interesting because there's so many different ways that Bitcoin is being used to, just put it simply, like not complicate things, to fix things, right? To fix the messes that was created by the fiat system. So, this is a very interesting development that's happened as well, and really excited to see where this goes. And again, guys, just to kind of give you guys a reminder, this is in addition to the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. This is in addition to the Bitcoin Act. This is in addition to the Sovereign Wealth Fund. This is in addition to the state level strategic Bitcoin reserves, right? So, and again, these are all things that are happening individually, simultaneously, which is extremely exciting. Bitcoin truly does fix things. Anyways, I do want to give a shout out to the almost 2,000 of you guys watching live across all platforms. I want to give a shout out to the Rumble audience as well. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to smash that like button. Help us break 200 likes within the first hour of the show. Currently just broke 100 likes. So smash the like button if you guys are enjoying the content. You guys are listening to Simply Bitcoin Live. Before we move on to the next segment, I do want to give a very special shout out to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor, BitcoinWell.com. BitcoinWell.com is the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. Enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin on or via the Lightning Network in Canada or the USA. To get started, you put in your email address here. It takes 2 to 5 minutes to get signed up. And what makes Bitcoin Well different is that it's a completely non-custodial platform, empowering sovereign ownership with free automatic self-custody. If you're a higher net worth individual and you're looking to buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more, check out Bitcoin Well Infinite. It's a Bitcoin OTC desk with infinite opportunity. If you're tired of dealing with finicky AI, finicky UI, or terrible support emails, and you want an actual human being that you can call or text every time you want to buy Bitcoin or sell Bitcoin, check out Bitcoin Well Infinite. And if you live in the United States, Americans can now get paid in Bitcoin sent directly to their personal Bitcoin wallet. Share your Bitcoin Well direct deposit details with your employer and set your Bitcoin/dollar split and receive sats instead of fiat with every paycheck. Guys, what are you waiting for? Head over to bitcoinwell.com today. And if you use promo code SimplyBTC while signing up, you get 3 tosses into the wishing well, absolutely free. All right, everybody, let's hit the numbers. We have tons to talk about. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stampseed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stampseed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today. All right, everybody. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $94,150. Block height 884,350. Sats per dollar 1,062. Market cap 1.87 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap 9.08%. Percentage issued 94.4%. Decline from all-time high negative 13%. Negative 13.7%. And realized monetary inflation 0.99%. The monetary inflation rate of Bitcoin is below 1%. Anyways, I thought this was really, really interesting. Michael Saylors' 21 rules of Bitcoin. And I want to talk to Sidra about this. And I want to talk to Opti about this. I want to get your thoughts on these so-called 21 rules of Bitcoin from Michael Saylor. And it's actually pretty funny because someone wrote a 21 realities of Bitcoin responding to it. I don't know if we'll have enough time to get through all of that, but let's stick with Saylor's first. So first, number 1 rule, those who understand buy Bitcoin. Those who don't criticize Bitcoin. Number 3, everyone is against Bitcoin before they're for it. Number 4, you will never be done learning about Bitcoin. Number 5, Bitcoin is powered by chaos. Number 6, Bitcoin is the only game in the casino that we can all win. Number 7, Bitcoin is the only thing in the universe that you can truly own. Number 8, everyone gets Bitcoin at the price they deserve. Number 9, only buy Bitcoin with the money you can't afford to lose. Number 10, tickets to escape the matrix are priced in Bitcoin. Number 11, Bitcoin Insight is restricted to those with a need to know. Number 12, all your models will be destroyed. Number 13, the cure to economic ill is the orange pill. Number 14, be for Bitcoin, not against fiat. Number 15, Bitcoin is for everyone. Number 16, learn to think in Bitcoin. Number 17, you can't change Bitcoin, it changes you. Number 18, laser eyes protect you from endless lies. Number 19, respect Bitcoin or it will make a clown out of you. Number 20, you do not sell your Bitcoin. Number 21, spread Bitcoin with love. Moving on to the John Carvalho 21 realities. I think this is going to be a little bit savage. Number 1, the great majority of people do not understand Bitcoin, including owners of it, but but everyone understands wanting to get rich. Number 2, the best critics of Bitcoin are its own experts. Number 3, criticizing Bitcoin does not mean you're against it. Bitcoin is not a team, or not everyone needs to care about your passions. Number 4, Bitcoin books suck. Most podcaster education sucks. Learn about how Bitcoin works, how networks works, and ignore all the BS predictions about the future. Number 5, Bitcoin is powered by consuming electricity. It is certainly not about a battery. Number 6, the future is unpredictable, and Bitcoin offers no guarantee of liquidity when you need it at the price you prefer. Number 7, you can own anything you can physically defend or destroy without consequence from others. In Bitcoin, you own keys alone. Everything else is uncertain. Number 8, Bitcoin gains are diminishing over time, benefiting early adopters more than newer ones. Similar to a Ponzi scheme without a leader, it is easier for rich people to get richer from Bitcoin than for poor people to. Number 9, savings. That's a hard. Do you guys want to comment on that one, Opti?
What was it? Sorry, I was doing
Bitcoin's
something.
gains are diminishing over time, benefiting early adopters more than the newer ones. Similar to a Ponzi scheme without a leader, it is easier for rich people to get richer from Bitcoin than for poor people to.
I mean, I don't disagree. I've been joking for a long time that, you know, as much as people call Bitcoin a Ponzi, we always flip it on its head and it's like, yeah, it's a Ponzi for the people. So like, yeah, I mean, and it kind of goes back to the classic trope of gold that, you know, you don't save in gold to get rich. You save in gold to stay rich. And so it's kind of a, you know, a classic trope here that like Bitcoin, I think is very similar. And I as much as I don't like the diminishing return memes, I'm kind of more of an S-curve adoption of Bitcoin type of guy. The standard idea is that we are going to see continuously diminishing returns as Bitcoin does kind of become a more stable asset and more people do get involved. But I still think we have a lot of room to run. As far as I'm concerned, when I talk to most people that I've encountered, they don't understand Bitcoin at all. So maybe number 1 is right. You know, they don't understand Bitcoin, but they understand wanting to get rich. And I mentally fight against the diminishing returns because it just, when I talk to people, it doesn't seem like there's that many people that are actually in Bitcoin, and even if they are in Bitcoin, they might get lost in the crypto land. So I don't know. I still have to wait. This is something that we will only see after the fact and be like, yeah, you know, diminishing returns was right. Maybe S-curve adoption is on a longer time frame, but I don't think he's wrong. You know, it sounds horrible, but I don't think John Carvalho is wrong on this one.
So I have.
Go ahead,
Sorry,
Sidra.
just really quick. I think I have the most I agree here is benefiting early adopter, and this is true in any industry, you know. And I think rest of the stuff that he's talking about, I understand, you know, from where we stand right now. When we look back, it makes sense, but we don't know where it's gonna go. And I think the future is like such big with Bitcoin. So imagine, like, you know, if someone would say, like, you are buying a land in New York, like, you know, 50 or 100 years ago, and then the price in 10 years is, you know, 10x what you bought. Now people would say, like, okay, you know, this is the maximum you could go, but now look at like where prices are. So that's how I look at Bitcoin. And I think like the only true thing here which I see at the moment is benefiting early adopter more. And also, I mean, I don't want to give myself this, you know, notion that, oh, I came later, so I can get benefit out of this. And I'm a big believer that Bitcoin is for everyone. So
I 100%. I do agree with that. Bitcoin is for everyone. If you guys agree with John Carvalho's number 8, and I'm going to read it one more time for you guys. Bitcoin's gains are diminishing over time, benefiting early adopters more than new ones. If you guys agree with that, put 1 in the chat. If you disagree with that, put 2 in the chat. Anyways, number 9 says savings requires a goal of saving for a special outcome. Otherwise, you are just hoarding, which is irrational. Do not speculate with money that you might need for more important things. Number 10, there is no matrix and no escape. I think he's wrong there. Number 11, Bitcoin insight requires listening to the right people by discerning insight from BS pumper talk. Number 12, good models represent reality, not define it. Almost no one has attempted to earnestly model Bitcoin, whether through economics, game theory, etc. Number 13, the cure to economic ill is to produce more things people want and less things people don't want. I fundamentally agree with this one. What do you think about that one, Sidra?
I completely agree with that too. Yeah.
Right? It's like the basis of capitalism. It's the basis like that people don't get rich because the more money is printed. People get rich because people are producing things, right? Are making things, right? Or people get wealthier, and people get wealthier as a whole. Society gets wealthier as a whole. 100%. So I agree with that one 100%. Number 14, being for Bitcoin is automatically an offense to government fiat, as all fiat compete for distribution with other monies and credit. Bitcoin is for everyone, not everyone. Bitcoin is for anyone, not everyone, because it does not scale by design. Ooh, I think, so this is how I feel about this one. I think it is for anyone, but from experience, and I've been doing this for 9 years, I've been telling people about Bitcoin for a long time, and not everyone has wanted to adopt it, even though I've told anyone could download a Bitcoin wallet. And in regards to the scaling debate, I think Bitcoin's going to scale on a second layer. I don't think it's going to scale on the first layer. And that doesn't mean that Bitcoin can't be used on the second layer. I think most people are going to be using Bitcoin on the second layer. So let's 16 says, learn to think and be skeptical of Bitcoin evangelists. Bitcoin is for censorship resistance. Number 17, Bitcoin is too easy to change because users accept Bitcoin core governance over the code and do not understand anything that happens in that level. Number 18, laser eyes failed the first time and a lot of people got wrecked. Number 19, don't act like a clown Ponzi salesman. The people can tell will not respect you or Bitcoin. Number 20, do whatever the F you want with your Bitcoin. That is what it's for. Spending is literally the only thing you could do with it anyway. Number 21, be careful evangelizing Bitcoin. Humans are prone to gambling and emotional about money. Your advice could be misinterpreted and lives could be ruined if people have bad timing or are impulsive. It's completely it contradicts a little bit of what Saylors is saying. Opti, which one's your favorite? Guys, do you like John Carvalho's more? If you do, press 2 in the chat. If you like Michael Saylors' 21 rules, put 1 in the chat. I'm going to start off with Sidra. Sidra, which rules do you prefer?
I love Michael Saylor rules because that's what I'm also trying to follow in my company. And I think for John, I agree probably 10 to 15%, and rest I need to understand a bit more because I think he's coming from a place, but I don't completely understand that. What is that? Some of them were like very, very subjective, and I don't understand them.
100%. Opti, what's your take on this, my friend? Do you prefer Saylor's rules or do you prefer John Carvalho's rules?
Well, I like both of them. I hate to do the both meme here because I'm kind of cheating on which one I like more. But just kind of comparing them, the Saylor ones do seem a little more rhetorical. And if you guys don't know who John Carvalho is, he's been around Bitcoin for a long time. He was a part of, he did the emphasis Bcash with Roger Ver. So he's been around for a long time in the Bitcoin space. He's a builder. He's working on, I believe it's Synonym Lightning Wallet. So he's a builder as well. And so I do kind of like John Carvalho's more sober take here. This is like from a long time Bitcoin builder, someone that's been in the space for a long time. It is more of like a sober take on a lot of this stuff. And it doesn't feel as good, but the Saylor rhetoric does sound good. And I really enjoy that. But my favorite one though is, which one is it? No, wait, can you zoom in here a little bit, Nico?
Yeah, which one?
On Saylors. My favorite rule is, which one is it? The one that is like saving Bitcoin for what you, number nine. Only buy Bitcoin, where'd it go? Only buy Bitcoin with the money you can't afford to lose. I absolutely love this one because it is kind of a counter meme to something we've been saying in the Bitcoin space for a long time. And I think it started with Andreas Antonopoulos originally, where it's like only put, and you hear this all the time in the quote unquote crypto space and Bitcoin space for a long time, is like only put enough money in Bitcoin that you can afford to lose. And I like this, like flipping that meme on its head and say only buy Bitcoin with the money you can't afford to lose, which really kind of goes into this idea of the store of value, protecting your purchasing power of Bitcoin. And so I think that's like the strong strongest rule out of here, and it's kind of flipping the memetics on its head based on what you usually say to other people. Because when you say, hey, only put enough money in Bitcoin that you can afford to lose, it does kind of sound like a gamble, and you're just speculating on Bitcoin. But this one, it sounds a lot stronger to me. Only buy Bitcoin with the money you can't afford to lose. And then people are like, wait, what? Like, what are you talking about? And it's like, well, number go up. Bitcoin's the perfect store of value. It's going to maintain its purchasing power over time. Obviously, it's going to go up over time. And so I like this framing a little more. It makes Bitcoin seem a little more of a conservative way to maintain your value and your wealth. And so I like number 9 the most out of all of this.
100%. I 100% agree with you. Yeah, I mean, this is an incredible way of looking at it, because if your money isn't in Bitcoin, it's literally, it's a melting ice cube. I think Saylor absolutely nails it there. Anyways, guys, we still have a ton of content for you guys. We're going to hit the news segment in a little bit. FTX repayments are about to hit the market. And you know what sucks is that people are getting paid. They're not getting their Bitcoin back. They're getting their cash value of Bitcoin at the time FTX went down. So for every 1 Bitcoin, they're getting $20,000 in cash. $20,000 in cash for 1 Bitcoin. They're losing $80,000 worth of value, which is why we're strong advocates for not your keys, not your cheese here at Simply Bitcoin. So we're going to talk about that. And then during the culture segment, we're going to talk about atoms and how they're some of the comfiest shoes you can ever wear. And we have the CEO and founder Sidra with us on the show today. They've dropped custom special edition Bitcoin shoes in the past, and they might be dropping some more custom Bitcoin special edition shoes in the future. You guys have to stay tuned to find out. But anyways, we're going to hit the news segment. We will be right back. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Casa. Bitcoin security matters, but managing private keys can sometimes be complicated, especially multi-sig. What if you can secure your Bitcoin without worrying about losing a seed phrase or giving up custody? With Casa, you can completely control your Bitcoin with multi-key security, so even if one key is lost or stolen, your funds stay safe. No single point of failure, no stress. That's what I absolutely love about these guys. They make taking Bitcoin into self-custody incredibly easy with their best in industry user experience through their app. I've been personally recommending Casa for years now to my friends and family because they will get all the benefits of multi-key self-custody security without the hassle of having to learn complicated UI. And if you're thinking of one day passing on your Bitcoin to the next generation, their inheritance plan has you covered. Also, if you're a business looking to add Bitcoin to your treasury, do it the secure way with Casa for Business. To get started, go to casa.io today and get 5% off Casa Standard or Casa Premium with promo code SIMPLY. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US, and it integrates seamlessly with their free app called Envoy. Passport is fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a classic feature phone, so you'll know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. It's also air-gapped, meaning Bitcoin stays offline, never touching an internet connection. It's Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, air-gap security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes with Passport at foundation.xyz/simply. Get peace of mind for your piece of Bitcoin. All right, everybody, here's Opti. And if you use promo code SIMPLY, you won't get Opti, but you will get a discount to the Passport by Foundation devices. Not your keys, not your cheese. Guys, this is a perfect gift to give to somebody that perhaps is a little bit intimidated by taking Bitcoin into self-custody, because Passport makes it easy and convenient without sacrificing security. Scan the QR code or check the link in the video description, promo code SIMPLY, to get a discount. All right, everybody, let's jump straight into today's news segment. Here's the headline. FTX $1.2 billion repayments mark key moment in crypto industry recovery. FTX Digital Markets, the Bahamian unit of the collapsed cryptocurrency exchange FTX, is set to repay the first group of creditors on February 18th, in a significant development for the crypto industry following the exchange's almost $9 billion collapse. The downfall of FTX and more than 130 subsidiaries launched a series of insolvencies that led to the industry's longest ever crypto winter, which saw Bitcoin's price bottom out at $16,000. In a key moment for the crypto industry's recovery, FTX Bahamas wing will honor the first batch of repayments for users who are owed less than $50,000 worth of claims. Users will receive their funds at 3 p.m. UTC on February 18th, according to a February 4th X post from FTX creditor Sunil, who is part of the largest group of more than 1,500 FTX creditors. The repayments will bring an estimated $1.2 billion worth of capital to the first wave of defrauded FTX users. The FTX repayments are being viewed as a positive signal for the crypto industry's recovery. It goes on to say the $1.2 billion repayments may see a significant portion reinvested into cryptocurrencies. Quote, this event could boost investor sentiment by demonstrating market recovery from the FTX collapse. According to the Bitcoin price right now, that doesn't seem like what happened. The quote, the scale of this repayment marks a notable event in terms of both capital flow and psychological impact on crypto investors. Despite the positive news, some creditors have criticized the repayment model, which reimburses claimants based on cryptocurrency prices at the time of bankruptcy. Bitcoin prices, for example, have increased by more than 370%. Ouch. FTX repayments, a victory for justice, but market impact limited. While the first FTX repayment represents a significant step forward, the capital may only have a limited effect on the cryptocurrency market. While it may not be a market-moving catalyst, the first FTX payout represents a significant victory for justice and overall market sentiment. Here's the last quote. I'm going to read it. Quote, the collapse impacted many investors and cast a shadow over crypto. For retail investors, especially those without a diversified portfolios, these repayments offer not just the return of funds, but a reality of stability and peace of mind. I mean, I disagree. Like, the Bitcoin price has increased 370%. You know what's really funny though? Is that if you get paid back in Ethereum, you're going to get the exact same amount of Ethereum. But if you get paid back in Bitcoin, I saw it. If you're owed one Bitcoin, you're only going to get $20,000. You only get 20,000. So you'll get 0.2 Bitcoin back for every Bitcoin, right? So there's a couple lessons here. Lesson number one is not your keys, not your cheese. We talk about this all the time. Like, I feel like we just keep repeating ourselves. Our sponsors are like, we literally pick and choose who we partner with specifically so that you guys have exposure to specific products that will allow you to take self-custody easy in a much easier fashion. So, yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, wrecked. Unless you've been holding Ethereum. If you've been holding Ethereum, you've been made whole, bro. But if you were holding Bitcoin on FTX, absolutely wrecked, man. So not your keys, not your cheese. As someone in the chat says, victory for justice, LOL, better than nothing, I guess. It is better than nothing. Like, let's give credit where credit is due. It's definitely better than nothing, you know. But again, if people, what's the definition of insanity, Opti? Like, if you continue to do the same thing and expect different results, like that's the definition of insanity or something along those lines. I totally butchered it. But we saw Mt. Gox. We saw what happened with Mt. Gox, right? Someone in the chat says, no, could you pull that up again, Opti? No Passport customers were harmed in the FTX fraud. Exactly. If you guys got yourself a Passport hardware wallet and took self-custody of your Bitcoin, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter with all this stuff going on around you. If your Bitcoin's in self-custody, It doesn't matter. You're just watching. And when all these things blow up, you're just going to get cheaper Bitcoin, right? So this is a crazy, crazy industry. It has so many scams. It has so many pump and dumps. Odell has a very, very clever and wise line, which is stay humble, stack sats, stay solvent. And in my experience, I've been doing this for 9 years. That tends to be the most effective way. A lot of people get absolutely wrecked trying to, experiment, trying to speculate. Sometimes the best way is just focus on growing your income. Like focus on growing your income. The more you grow your income, the more you can stack. Bitcoin's the best savings technology. What you put in Bitcoin today, 10 years from now, is going to be a whole lot bigger. So yeah, I mean, it is a learning lesson. They're definitely, I want to give credit where credit is due. Definitely a victory for justice, for sure. But they're getting cash repayments. They're not getting Bitcoin repayments. So if you're holding ETH, you're very happy about that. If you're holding Bitcoin, you're not so happy. Keith said, when FTX blew up, my family asked if I was all right. And I said, yep, I hold my own keys. Yeah, it's very, very wise words in the chat. Opti, what's your take on this? And then we'll ask Sidra.
Yeah, well, first of all, as I've been saying for a long time on the show, that the whole FTX debacle was definitely a huge black eye on the whole Bitcoin industry, or rather, crypto industry. But us Bitcoiners, we had to, do a lot of work to try to separate Bitcoin and prove like the wrongs and all the mishaps that happened around FTX. And we still haven't really grown past that. If you hear legacy media or corporate press talk about Bitcoin, usually, for the most part, they still bring up FTX as one of the main concerns about, the dangers and the speculation and the uncertainty around Bitcoin or crypto at large. And so, on the one hand, I'm glad that there is some form of justice and that it's actually happening kind of quickly, considering Mount Gox stuff is still we still barely have much closure on Mount Gox stuff, and that happened so long ago. And so at least this is kind of happening quickly. And obviously, as a Bitcoiner, we talk about this all the time, is you do not want to be leaving your Bitcoin on exchanges for this very reason. This is why we constantly talk about the concerns around paper Bitcoin. This is why we essentially tell you every day that the most important thing for you to do is not just get Bitcoin exposure via ETFs or leaving your Bitcoin on an exchange. It's taking that Bitcoin into personal custody, securing that Bitcoin for yourself. This is how you protect yourself against this stuff. And so this was a huge learning moment for, obviously not as Bitcoiners that have been around for a long time, but I would say for a lot of the main street out there, a lot of the normies out there, a lot of the people that were coming into Bitcoin, they learned a very expensive lesson. And, at least they're getting partially paid out. Of course, they're going to be using the Bitcoin price of the time of the explosion of FTX, which is what, 30K, we're at around 100K now. So they're not necessarily being paid whole, but this is the very danger of Bitcoin, is that, hey, if you are trying to, get paid back in Bitcoin, what are you getting paid back, in dollars or in the actual, hard asset itself, which is the Bitcoin? And so, on the one hand, it's unfortunate for the people because they got wrecked. At least they're getting kind of paid back in some form or fashion. And on the other hand, it's going to be very interesting to see how much of that capital does go back into Bitcoin and whether they have learned their mistakes, or learned their lessons the second time they come back into Bitcoin. So the total is, from what I'm hearing, it's like $16 billion total that will be repaid back. So maybe we'll see a portion of that start to go back into the market. And all of these things, kind of all of the news that we're hearing right now, is this idea of there's so much seemingly capital coming into Bitcoin, but the Bitcoin price isn't really doing anything. And so this is kind of where we're all wondering, okay, we're literally the meme with the stick, Bitcoin, can you do something? We have institutional capital, we have insane capital inflows, or quote capital inflows into the Bitcoin ETFs. Doesn't seem like it seems to be moving the market. The very simple idea is, I guess maybe there's just a lot of long-term holders that are selling Bitcoin, and that's kind of dwarfing the market right now. But it's going to be very interesting to see if these people that are made, well, partially whole on FTX, re-enter their capital into Bitcoin and start to take Bitcoin into personal custody. So hopefully, this next cycle, we don't see any more of these huge explosions, because FTX was a huge black eye on the market, on the whole industry as a whole, and we're barely getting that FTX stench off of us. And so hopefully more people learn their lesson, and in the future, there isn't other people that make this same mistake, or other companies that make this mistake. But I mean, I'm not going to hold my breath. We've obviously seen this happen in the past. There's been a lot of examples of this, but hopefully moving forward, these companies don't take advantage of their users, and hopefully the users do take their Bitcoin off the exchanges, and they start to store their Bitcoin themselves. Again, not your keys, not your Bitcoin. This is like the entire mantra of Bitcoin in general, is you need to hold that Bitcoin yourself. It's not just about the Bitcoin exposure.
100%. I think that's very, very beautifully put. Sidra, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, actually, this whole story reminds me Michael Saylor, that rule where he said that Bitcoin is powered by chaos. I think there is no other story than FTX story that can define it really well. Yeah, it's really sad that what people are getting, but at least they are getting. And I think something which is very important and crucial is that what we can learn and what we can build out of this. Of course, like these type of cases also become an opportunity in the industry to build on top of that. So that's what I'm hoping. And I think we are seeing, a lot of product that you guys share throughout this live are really, really good product that, of course, like people should look into. And, one thing which I just want to share, that even when we were thinking about buying some Bitcoin for our company, so the main thing was like, how we're going to store them, how we're going to make sure that it's safe as an asset. As I mentioned, like, thank God we have someone in our team whose name is Raymond Dirk. If you guys want to check him out on Twitter, his name is Raymond Dirk. He's really, really resourceful guy. So he set up a foundation for us. And then later on, I discussed that with one of my other founders' friend, and we are going to share a basic guideline for other smaller companies, that how they can make sure that they buy and purchase and keep, at the same time, Bitcoin safe, that whole process. And we are working on like sharing that guideline very soon.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Helping other small businesses that perhaps aren't Bitcoin focused. Because again, this is something that like a lot of people have to understand, right? Like we're a Bitcoin media company. So like all we do is talk about Bitcoin. Like we understand it. So like for self-custody for us, it's pretty straightforward, right? But like, for example, in the case of Sidra, you guys focus on shoes. That's your business, is making these amazing shoes. Learning about Bitcoin is an entirely different thing, that it isn't exactly what you guys are mainly focused on, right? So that's really awesome that you guys are like kind of open sourcing the way that you guys are custodying your Bitcoin. But it's super awesome that you guys are using Bitcoin as a tool as part of your company's treasury strategy. And I'm sure it's going to be extremely beneficial for you guys. So yeah, guys, I think the long story short from here, just as what happened with Mt. Gox, not your keys, not your cheese, take self-custody of your Bitcoin. If you take self-custody of your Bitcoin, you become unruggable, right? It really comes down to that. All right, everybody, we're going to hit the culture. We're going to talk about all things atoms. We will be right back. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, HIVE Digital Technologies. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's been battle tested through every possible market. And as the first with an AI strategy, HIVE continues to redefine the future of sustainable energy. Also, gotta casually drop this in here, HIVE consistently tops the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're changing the game. Learn more by following them at HIVE Digital Tech, or check out their website, hivedigitaltech.com. I want to give a very special shout out to our sponsor, Compass Mining. They make Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone, from beginners to experienced investors. Their turnkey miners gets you online and hashing within 48 hours. making it easier than ever to start your mining journey. Plus, with their active marketplace, you can resell your miner at any time, adding flexibility and value to your investment. Visit their website to access a wealth of resources, learning everything you need to know about Bitcoin mining. Take your first step into the world of Bitcoin mining with confidence. Discover more at compassmining.io. Again, compassmining.io, and see how Compass Mining can power your success. All right, everybody. We're going to talk about all things atoms, and let's jump straight into it.
I got this. Sidra, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been a great show. I think the first place I want to start on today's culture is this idea of just being an entrepreneur and how Bitcoin supercharges that. And of course, we're talking about Adam's shoes. I'll pull up the website, but it kind of goes into a lot of this idea that you don't necessarily need to do something in Bitcoin necessarily and be a Bitcoiner. And I think this is kind of where Bitcoin starts to grow, not only as an industry, but as just, a better way to save your money. And so I love your story of I make shoes, and yes, it's powered by Bitcoin, but it's not necessarily like I'm a Bitcoin company. So can we start there? And there's a few things that you talked about throughout the show that I want to expand a little bit.
Absolutely. First of all, great show. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I am also looking at the chat. So good to see how people are passionate about this program, and then also giving comment and response to it. So for Atoms, we are focused on making innovative shoes for every day. So think about the way Nike make shoes for athletes. So they look at what type of shoes need or how their body functions, so they design the entire shoes accordingly. We look into people's everyday lifestyle. So when people walk, when they spend time in their shoes throughout the day, your foot actually expand throughout your day, and it depends on how you walk, how you stand. And then the other important thing is walking function and running function is completely different. And I know a lot of people even wear running shoes as their everyday shoes, but you have to, when you look around the shoes, you have to think about designing the shoes according to the function. So that's where we come in. And you are looking at my Humans of New York story. So my story came on Humans of New York 2 years ago, and that actually blew up on the internet. Around 8 million people read that story.
Wow.
In 3 days, we had $3 million sales, which was crazy. And it took us 6 months to fulfill that order. But this is my journey of starting my business from Pakistan, and then how we eventually came up towards building Atoms. And we were always, passionate about making the most comfortable shoes for every day. And the everyday idea, especially around the product, it has been with us since the beginning, because what we believe in is that product which are really innovative and add value in people's life, they become part of their everyday life. So that's how we think about shoes. We think about shoes from base foundation, and then think about style. So how shoes should work with your body and interact with your body. That's where, we start our work and then expand it from there. And go ahead.
Could you pull up also, by the way, holy cow, Rock TV, appreciate the 1999. And I appreciate, and did you just send us $200, bro? God damn. Thank you, bro. Rock VTM, appreciate the $200 super chat. I think that's an all-time high for us. Anyways, could you pull up the website? We got to give them a shout out. The ROKVTM. I appreciate you, bro. So listen, I reached out to Sidra because, first of all, could you click on the first one, Opti, all the way to the left? I wear that shoe every day, okay? And it is the comfiest effing shoe. They don't pay us. You guys don't pay us. We don't have a partnership, nothing. I was just I absolutely love these shoes. And then out of the blue, you guys dropped the special edition Bitcoin. And then in my head, I was like, wow, this is like a match made in heaven. Cause it just happened, by happenstance. It wasn't planned. So obviously these are limited edition. These are sold out. But could you go back to the website, Opti? And go to, yeah, exactly. Go to the one on the left. Okay, so that model, of course, they have it in different colors. They have it in white. They have it in black and white. They have it in navy. They have it in gray. It is so effing comfortable. It is really, really, really comfy. And by the way, since Sidra's on the show right now, we actually have a special promo code for you guys. If you buy from Atoms right now, if you go to atoms.com and you use promo code SIMPLY, I'm going to put it in the chat right now, you will get 15% off. So if you go to Atoms right now, I think for the rest of the day, and you use promo code SIMPLY, you get 15% off anything on the store. They're incredibly comfy shoes. We didn't get paid for this. Nothing. I'm just a huge fan. I'm a big fan of your company. I'm a big fan of your story. I'm a big fan of your product. And I use your product all the time. And I'm just waiting for these to get back in stock in my size so I can just buy 10 of them. I messaged Sidra randomly. I just messaged the Atoms X account, and I'm like, hey, guys, I want to buy 10 pairs of this one. When is it going to be back in stock? And Sidra actually responded to me back, which you never see with founders, by the way. You always deal with the marketing person on the X account. I'm not trying to bash anyone, but that's typically what happens when you reach out to a social media account. And Sidra's like, hey, this is the founder. And I'm like, I have to get her on the show. This is incredible. Like, I'm speaking to the founder. So huge fan. Love these shoes. You will not buy another pair of shoes after you buy these. They're simple. They're straightforward. They do their job. They're shoes. They're very comfy shoes. So, Sidra, I don't know if you want to add to any of what I just said, but it's been an honor having you on the show today because I wear your shoes every day.
No, thank you so much. I'll just add quickly two things. So one is like these shoes you can buy with Bitcoin. That is the first thing we enabled when we launched our Bitcoin shoes in 2020. And the second thing is not only that these shoes are made for comfort, but actually it has several other functions. So for example, the inside the shoes, we have real copper inside the shoes, so your shoes won't smell. Even whatever ways you are wearing it, because it has antimicrobial properties. And then the shoelaces is basically you tie them once and it works as a slip-on. So those are important thing. And then of course the overall material is designed for flexibility, comfort, and durability. So that's what we focus on. But we are looking into launching the second edition of Bitcoin shoes. So we'd love to have more conversation around that.
Absolutely. I'm so excited. And then they have a special edition. Could you pull that up, Opti? Because they have a special edition. It's the model 001. There's a special edition that you guys just dropped. I just bought myself a pair. I haven't tried model 001, so I can't talk. I don't know what it feels like, but I'm assuming it's just as good as model 000.
Absolutely.
So this is the second iteration. This is the new model. And this is the special edition. Could you talk a little bit about that? Like, what is it? I'm assuming you guys teamed up with an artist or something.
Yes. So this is an artist who does calligraphy, mostly in deconstructive calligraphy. So one side of the shoes is written atoms, and the other side is more like linear designs on the left side of the shoes. And this shoes we just launched for 2 weeks. And somebody asked in chat, like, if we have 12.5 size. Yes, we go from 5.5 to 16 shoe size. So you can check that on the website. And this shows the difference between model 0 and model 1 is the outsole. So the model 0 outsole is basically an exposed midsole, and the outer layer is rubber outsole. And this one is basically a cup sole. So it is completely a cup made out of TPV material, which is a compound. We mix rubber and different other compounds. And then inside is basically the same form as we are using for model 0. So that's the only difference. And the reason we did that, because some people who have pronation in their foot, they should wear the shoes because they need more support. And in pronation is something when you walk, your foot dip inside. So I mean, that probably, if you have noticed in your walk, or someone can notice for you, but that is very critical for your knee pain. So that's why we have these shoes, because this provide a lot more support for pronated foot.
So we got a lot of questions in the chat. Let me start with where is this one?
Oh, here's wine.
No, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second. I want orange shoes. So someone wants orange shoes. Someone else is asking, is the shoe good for a person with a high arc?
I would not say that just use it as it is. I would say like use a special insole, and then this would be good.
Okay.
So whatever you.
And then we got a special request. When Simply Bitcoin limited edition shoe? I can't comment on that, but
I think we have to cook some ideas, and that will be really, really exciting, because I mean, by being on your show, I think the community that you guys have, it's such a amazing community, and the kind of knowledge that you are providing, I think this is so foundational. So I actually wish you guys all the best, and I think like it come back to you as the kindness and generosity, and the work that you guys are doing. So wish you a lot of success in that.
Thank you so much. And then actually, hold on. I do want to ask Sidra a question, and she talked about it earlier, and we talked about this before the show. And I kind of, started it with being an entrepreneur and then adding Bitcoin to it. You were talking about you've added Bitcoin to your personal or company balance sheet, and you said something interesting. And that you said something on the lines of, as a shoe company, I think I have a very special angle of spreading this idea of financial freedom. So could you talk about that real quick? And then maybe we'll hit a couple more comments. But I think that's a very interesting take.
Yeah. So, when we think about our product, we go really deep, but then we think about building our brand. We think about, what are those things happening around us which is actually adding value in people's life. This is why when we do artist collaboration, or when we do collaboration with other influencers for the shoes or for marketing, we think about that, what they stand for. And that's where, when we were looking into Bitcoin, not only something that we should buy as an asset, but we were thinking about that, how we can actually be part of this idea, where we can take it maybe like in the shape of shoes, or create more like meaningful and serious conversation around it. Because of course, like in 2020, still people were not like looking at this not as a very serious asset. I know like now conversation is shifting completely different. So at the time, I think the most important thing which resonated with me personally was, because I'm from Pakistan, and I started my journey from there, and being a woman entrepreneur, this idea of building financial freedom for myself, it stood out really important narrative for me. Not only like just a narrative, but I think from something that we should be doing, each and every one of us should be doing. So that's where we wanted to like go beyond. And when even people in sneaker industry, whenever they look into our Bitcoin collaboration, they sometimes make fun of us. They say like, hey, you guys are not very serious, you don't want to become a serious brand. Like, when people will look at you, they would say, oh, Atoms actually launched a Bitcoin shoes, what does that mean? And I feel that sometimes it's not very important to respond to whatever criticism come at you at that point, but you have to have a very clear North Star, that why you are doing. And for us, I mean, the idea of, for me, like being a woman entrepreneur as an immigrant, the idea of financial freedom is super important for me, and I want to carry on. And when my Humans of New York story came out, I was having conversation with Brandon Stanton, who run Humans of New York. He asked me like, why you want your story to be out. And I said like, I am from a small town in Pakistan. Even if like one girl over there read my story, and she would like to stood up for her dreams, that's the success of this story. And I think that's the same thing I look at, like for creating financial freedom for all. And this is why I love when Michael Saylor, he said that Bitcoin is for everyone. Yes, I think maybe some people don't believe in that. I think what you said, like there will be a second layer of it, I truly believe in that. And I think like this will reach out to more people as an asset.
Absolutely. Inspirational. I love success stories, and you know, this is very inspirational, and it's great to hear that you guys are doing so incredible. So for the 2,886 of you guys watching live, appreciate you all. Go check out atoms.com today. For the day, if you use promo code Simply, you get 15% off anything on the Atoms website. And I do want to thank Sidra for coming on the show today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
Before we close out the show, guys, I do want to give a very special shout out to our sponsor, BitBlockBoom. It's going to be an amazing Bitcoin conference coming up in Dallas, Texas, April 3rd through the 6th of 2025. You definitely don't want to miss it. Me and Opti are going to be there. Dante's going to be there. It's going to be a Bitcoin celebration. We're going to be running the news desk and the live stream. It's going to be a great time. You definitely don't want to miss it. It's April 3rd through the 6th of 2025. Get your tickets now before the prices go up. And if you use promo code BBB21, again, BBB21, you get $100 off of your tickets. All right, everybody. Before we close out the show, if you guys enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash the like button. Consider subscribing if you feel like we provided you value. And of course, today is February 18th, 2025. I'm your host, Nico. Our special guest, Sidra, CEO and founder of atoms.com. And of course, my legendary co-host and co-founder, Optimus Fields, in the co-host seat today. We love you all, and we'll see you guys on the next episode of Simply Bitcoin Live.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.